We are ready, Mr. Mayor.
All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting or a meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, March 23rd, 2026. Time is 4:33 p.m. This will be a work session. And for the record, we do have council members Barber, Coleman, Taylor, and Peyton joining us. We do have four. We do have a quorum, and we'll go ahead and let city manager take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope you guys are all enjoying some of the sunshine out there today. I know it gets to be kind of a hard time of year when that sun comes out to sit inside. So thank you for being here with us this evening. We discussed at the last city council work session on March 16th, the general fund budget. And so the next steps would be to discuss special revenue funds and then get into a little bit of the capital budget if we have time. I anticipate that we'll bring the capital budget back as a whole in an upcoming work session, but just because they all tie into each other, the general fund, the special revenue funds, even though they're standalone, they all have impact on the capital budget. So just to give a little, because we kind of started talking about that at the last meeting. So trying to be prepared so that we have a little bit of information to begin that discussion, and we can bring back anything that is needed. But starting off on page 3 with a memo of your packet here, and as said, we're going to talk about those special revenue funds: water, sewer, municipal dock, boat harbor, which is also jackloff, boat haul out storage, senior meals, volunteer, fire, and EMS. And all of these special revenue accounts are due to the fact that they have revenues that come in, and those revenues really should meet the expenditures. So they are primarily funded on user fees, and you'll see there's a difference between them and the general fund budget because there will be revenues and expenditures for every fund. Overall recommendations, similar to as we discussed in the general fund, are the 1.5% COLA increase with a potential 1.5 step increase, unless those position wages are determined by contract. We have a few positions that are that we manage the positions through a contract, like through AMHS or the Seldovia Recreational Service Area, and so those contracts determine wage increases more than the city does. So besides that, having that 1.5% COLA increase, and then 1.5% increase on user fees as well, per the 2026 February Anchorage Consumer Price Index. We can discuss these further as you guys wish, and then of course during and I should say the 2027 fee schedule. So that will be an upcoming discussion just to go over any changes. And of course, that's a great time and place if you want to see any differences. I'll point out, like, refuse, for instance, hasn't changed in a long time, and it barely meets the bottom line, but it does. Could be something that we could look at due to inflation, or if there are any other changes you guys would like to see. 10% increase for health and general liability insurance. As stated, though, those estimates are not available yet, so we went high with hopes that it won't be as significant of an increase as estimated. And also knowing that the FY26 general liability insurance actuals were significantly lower. So you'll see in here, even though it states a 10% increase, sometimes it shows lower than FY26 budget, and that's because we're going off of actuals and not what was budgeted. Appropriations were also included for the air flight subscriptions for employees and volunteers, and that was in the general fund as well. So across the board, implementing that air flight subscription incentive, as long as that is the desire of the council. And then with that, we will hop into the actual departments, well, I guess their actual funds discussion. So if you want to turn to page 7. we will talk about the water special revenue fund. All of these funds start off with our expenditures. You'll see that there is an increase to retirement in the water special revenue fund, and that is due to the fact that our primary operator, and actually all of our operators at this point, are full-time benefited employees. So we last couple of years had a different model where we had a primary water operator who was part-time, and we are no longer in that model, and that has increased that retirement cost. We also show a higher operating supplies for FY27, and this is pretty typical. If you'll look back, like FY23 at 16,000, FY24 at 7,000, FY25 at 16,000. We budgeted 12,000 in FY26, and we typically budget high. We're not anywhere near there. I think we're at like 2,000 right now. And our operator is going to put in an order for the supplies that he needs. That's a lot of that's like the polymer and the different chemicals and supplies he needs at the water treatment plant. But historically, we track that we will have a high year and then a lower year because we use about a drum and a half of polymer a year. So one year we order two, and the next year we order one, and then that's a high expense. And there's some other things that are on a biannual ordering basis. So long story short to say, I anticipate FY27 will be high, and FY26 will not meet that $12,000 budget, but that we put that in there in case there's any unanticipated expenses. Contracting services, that is our water testing with Alaska Water Lab, and unfortunately that went way up in FY26. When I reached out and asked what was happening, they just kind of like what's happening across the nation. They haven't raised rates in a long time. They'd been stagnant for a long time. So to keep up with inflation, they had a significant increase. I think it was like 22% at this past year. So that was an unfortunate bite for the utility. Otherwise, everything else remains fairly similar, and we didn't include any capital projects yet because again, that would be part of the capital project discussion. That if you look on page 8 under capital projects, they're about 2/3 way down the page before we get into revenues. We did have the dam inspection last year, which moved into FY26 due to when that was invoiced, but won't be up again until FY28. That's a 3-year commitment. And then we did have some replacement parts and things, which we purchased some. I'll check where we're at with that and make sure we order anything that needs to be ordered before the end of fiscal year. And it also includes in that we were going to surface the roof for the water storage tank. Though it doesn't include any capital projects at this time for water treatment plant or for water in general, we do have in here under repairs and maintenance a new snow guard for the water treatment plant. It's theirs has busted and been broken for a while, so that's been a request. And some of their the pads that they have, some of the different out pads out around the building are breaking. So we're going to do some repairs to those concrete pads. And that's really it for revenue, or sorry, for expenditures. For the revenue side, also very simple. We just overall, I would say the changes to the budget are modest and simple because we seem to be in an all right place overall. And so for charges for services, like I said, a 1.5% increase. I apologize, everything in the right column, the differences is from FY25 to FY26, and those changes have not been implemented in this draft yet to show FY26 to FY27. It will be in the next one you see, as well as the notes underneath. Other than the operating fund balance target, the notes overall have not been updated. So I wanted to leave them in here. That way you guys have the general idea of what is entered into the budget. And when you see it next, all of those things will be finessed more and up to what the budget reads as. But thought this was important to get in front of you guys. In the meantime, otherwise, you'll see the other expenditures stay fairly similar, and that's tracking off of what's trended the last couple of years, and no transfer recommended from the major maintenance and repair fund because there's no capital projects at this point. And it does balance into the positive net effect. Any questions on water? Okay, I'm going to keep cruising through. If you guys have any questions and any of these as we go, let me know. Wastewater is on page 10, and you'll see the only thing that is highlighted to call out is the sewer replacement parts. And that's in part two that there was money budgeted in FY 26 for the replacement pumps for the SLU lift station. We have a loan through the state revolving fund with a 70% forgiveness on it. So this would be the city match. And it has not, we have not made it through the negotiations, the application and negotiations and everything that isn't, and that entails in order to get those pumps ordered. So I'm not sure if that'll happen FY 26 or FY 27. It might be one of those things that we're straddling the line again. So moving it forward and knowing that it's also moved forward under revenues for the MMRF sewer transfer. And then depending on where it lands, it'll either be audited and shake out in FY 26, or else those will be zeros for FY 26. And they'll be audited in FY 27. So those will balance out in the end. And then revenues, again, that 1.5% increase, and everything else stays fairly consistent and still projecting a net balance, positive net balance. Any questions on wastewater?
I'm sure this was already, checked this, but like, so that loan with the matching grants, you're still in the application process. Is there a date that has to be completed by, or that will go away?
Yeah, there is. And so I just need to follow up with that. Yeah. Anything else for wastewater or sewer, whatever you want to call it? We go back and forth. It's pretty interchangeable. Okay. Moving on to municipal dock. Municipal docks always are a little bit of a trouble fund in that typically it will show in the red, and it does now. Last year we actually ended up in the black, which was fantastic. But that hasn't been, I guess in FY 24 and FY 25 we did, in FY 23 we didn't. And it's very contingent on ferry service. That's their primary revenue, is how many stops that they have for ferry. And we budget for 85 stops because that's a little less than what we're actually scheduled for, in hopes that they come through. And if not, then that fund very quickly starts to struggle. So even with budgeting for that, we still end up in the red. And that's something we've discussed over the years, is how to bring more revenue in. I know Layla has been a big fan of having some of the tugs more there, and just different things she's looked at different things we can do for it. We do put the fisheries tax, the raw fish tax towards it, but that's only like $400 a year. We also put a little bit of the rent from the lease from the fuel and lube towards it because they utilize the dock. So happy to have a bigger discussion on this if you guys have any ideas. But for now, remaining pretty status quo in both expenditures and revenues, with showing that we are in the red on that department, about $6,000.
I, just on a positive note, I spoke with some of the crew members of that last tug that was in, and they said they were really happy with our dock, by the way. And then I've heard some questions about whether or not we could have NOAA boats come in. What, do we have more information on that? I don't know that much about that situation.
I haven't heard anything about that, so I can look into that. The other thing I didn't point out, and I apologize, is that under capital projects, I forgot to highlight it, that there is an appropriation, an $18,000 appropriation recommended to repair or replace 4 of the safety ladders on the dock and 6 of the platforms, to make improvements to 6 of the platforms. And then transferring that 18,000 from the major maintenance and repair fund unassigned fund, because the dock major maintenance and repair fund doesn't have funds to support this project, but the unassigned does, and that's where, when we get into the capital project, we can talk about that a little bit more budget, but and talk about what your guys' priorities are. In this budget so far, we only have the stairs for the multipurpose building and the dock, I believe, are the only 2 things that are recommended for projects in this coming year, knowing that we'll have the raw water transmission line project, the fuel and lube roof project in the fall, and then we're hopefully more quickly working towards Jackloff. So a lot of other big projects, and then that list that you guys saw at the last meeting of all of the public works projects that are still ongoing and still needing to be addressed. So not a lot of new projects, with the exception of these safety ladders and stairs. It's a step year. Any thoughts on that? And I understand if you want more information before we dive into that. We'll get into it when we get to the capital budget. If we go to page 16, we'll talk about the small boat harbor. Remaining fairly consistent. The travel goes up a little bit due to the fact that her conference in October is in Valdez. So she does intend to drive, and that will be mileage based. But upping that travel just a little bit in order to cover those costs. It was lower in 2025. Because it was in Homer, and I think in 2023 she had a scholarship. It bounces around, but I did speak with her about this upcoming travel, and she let me know that it is in Valdez. Contract services and leases goes up because it includes the Jackloff uplands now. So anticipating that we're gonna have 2,200 a year come out of this fund for it would be 1,200 for the tidelands and 1,000 for the uplands. And then most of the repairs, maintenance, equipment, utilities remains relatively similar. Insurance has that 10% increase. But where we get into a little bit of a difference is under capital projects. But still budgeting 17,000 for improvements, and that is with the plan to replace the boiler. The roof needs reshingled, so we'll have to see how far we can stretch it. We did put in for a grant for the boiler and the roof and new siding. And we should know by the end of next month whether we receive that. If we did, then that'll leave funds for other projects. But looking at the deck needing replaced, there's money in the FY26 budget to do the siding on the bottom of the building. So we're looking at that. And then using some of this budget in FY27 if there's additional siding that needs to be done, the deck, the boiler, and maybe starting the roof. So that 17,000 will not go far, but at least starting to look at some of that, of those repairs to that building. And those funds come from the port fee. And so really we in this discussion need to consider what that looks like moving forward, because the port fee has gone down from a 25 or 24 to $25,000 budget in the last 2 years to a $10,000 budget with the loss of the Seldovia Bay Ferry in the harbor. So she still has, that harbor has, if you look on page 18, you'll see that last line in the budget under assigned funds port fee, that 19,470 is how much we're anticipating will be in the port fee at the end of FY 26. That's this year. And then if we're utilizing, I pulled it in, you can see it. If you go back just the one page to the bottom of it, port fee unencumbered transfer, that's the 15,000 going in to cover those projects. And then that isn't, if that falls through the way it's anticipated, with the FY 27 port fee, we anticipate we'll have $4,370 at the end of FY 27 in that port fee account. If that's not the way council wants to do this, absolutely open to conversation. We can dive in as deep as you guys want to do it. And speaking with the harbor master, she would like to get some of these bigger projects done, especially if she still has a individual who's interested in doing some of this maintenance work over the summer. It also includes, and what you don't see with the in and out, is that there is 8,000 in wages and salary, both in FY 26 and FY 27, that goes towards that maintenance. So it's the person, and then the 1710 or 17,100 is for materials, and hoping to be able to accomplish those if we don't receive a grant for them. And finger hinge pins. So sorry, 7,100 for finger hinge pins, 10,000 for boiler and deck. The roof was not included, but that's something that's still needed. And as I said, if we need to push some towards siding, I'm looking to make sure that we complete that project as well this summer. So that's where we are.
Hey, Heidi,
Yes, open
I got
to
a
discussion.
question for you.
Yes.
So when you're looking at this at the bottom of that there, the assigned funds port fee.
Mhm.
So is that a rolling fund balance or is that actual per year?
That's what is utilized per year. I have a separate spreadsheet that goes through any materials, labor, anything that was spent utilizing the port fee account. And then we add in our revenues for the port fee, subtract out those expenses, and they roll into the next year.
Okay.
So only projecting moving forward that the port fee would be 10,000. That's part of this 4,000, 10,000 is part of the 17,100 and that's being spent on project materials, and the 8,000 for labor.
Okay, what's in the simple math here? What is what do we normally bring in on an average year so that's what I'm looking for. The last 3 years, say FY 24, 25, and 26. So 26 is still, I guess, in the budgeted here. What's the average that we're bringing in per year on that?
So for 26, I'll have to look back at the finance report. I think it's actually in your packet. I think it was like 11,000. Let me see. Let me pull up the finance report. And of course, that's because the Bay Ferry moved. Before that, we were bringing in a little bit over 25,000
Okay.
a year. So we've dropped, and we don't know what it's going to look like this year, but it's only, let me see. And of course, it doesn't specify this and this, you don't have the detailed report. So I'll pull that number for you. And get back to you about it. Or if you want to give me a minute, I can just pull it on my laptop real quick because I use it all the time. But definitely anticipating a loss.
Yeah, I
And
mean, go
Oh.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so in discussions with the harbor master, realizing that if this is what we're doing this year, then next year we may have a small project or two, but there won't. We're not anticipating there being funds for significant improvements moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, are we implying that the port fee should be raised to account for that offset? I mean, did I hear that, or is not what I
No.
heard? Okay.
Nope, not recommended,
Okay.
unless you guys want to explore that, we can recommend it. I just have not recommended it. I'm not saying not recommended. I'm saying I have
Yeah,
not
no, that, I mean,
recommended
that's
that.
my thoughts. I'd hate to see, I mean, it's like everything else in this town, the more and more gets put on less and less people. So, which is, yeah, I would advocate to try to go a different route if we could. So, I mean, you're not going to be able to make up that much loss, on the backs of everybody else. You could,
Right.
but it wouldn't be very fair.
Right, which is why we're just trying to stretch it as far as we can this summer and get as many big projects done as we can. And then moving forward, I don't anticipate that we would have the same model with a individual maintenance, part-time and maintenance position for that infrastructure. And as I said, it would be, maybe some smaller projects, but certainly not the attention that it has been getting the last couple of years. And I'm pulling up that finance report right now. So, and to carry on that conversation, after I pull up this finance report, you'll see that there are other funds available for improvements or emergencies for the harbor. So she does have a reserve account. But let me see. Harbor port feet to date was $11,641.
Okay.
So, and that's not reflected, of course, in that FY26 budget, but you'll see it when you'll see it in the next budget cycle and when we're getting ready to audit it. But it's also in that same manner, it's not included in this bottom line assigned fee, port fee, because I've been tracking it separately in a separate spreadsheet. So we're not accounting for that 21,000 as shown in FY26. So that'll be 11,460 or whatever I said it was. So definitely a decrease.
Okay.
Okay. And then if you want to skip ahead real quick, just to give you an idea, when we talk about capital project budget, if you look on page 26 of the packet, you'll see your investment and capital project funds. And this is with that restructuring that was recommended during the cash flow management policy discussion. So we're showing the Seldovia Permanent Fund, the Major Maintenance and Repair Fund, which has always been on its own, but all those small liability accounts are combined as a Major Maintenance and Repair Fund capital project budget, because that's what's in our code, is that the Major Maintenance and Repair Fund includes general fund, water, sewer, dock, harbor, BHO, and capital projects. So following code and trying to clean that up a little bit, those two combined would make the Major Maintenance Repair Fund of $274,852.67. And I will say that these numbers are preliminary and are subject to change. So certainly these are estimates. But for the most part, if you look like the general fund, water, sewer, dock, harbor, BHO, and these separate little capital projects, those numbers stay fairly consistent, unless is movement from council in and out for projects. And then the interest goes into an unassigned fund is the way it's set up right now. And then that can be used at your guys' discretion across any of these departments or funds, which is why we're recommending 18,000 out for the dock stairs, and 5,000 for the multipurpose building stairs. And so you'll see that unassigned is at 36,101 at the end of FY27. I have highlighted the accounts that would have movement, and I forgot to discuss that, so I'm glad we're looking at this. And water and sewer, but maybe we should finish our departments and then we'll go back and talk about what that means so as not to confuse things. Harbor Capital Project Fund, you can see, and this is where I wanted to just point out that if there are projects that need to get done at the harbor, not only do they have $26,400 in major maintenance and repair funds, harbor also has 70,000, which we're anticipating to be $73,309 dollars at the end of FY27. That's just been sitting and hadn't been recognized in the budget for the last several years, but has been tracked in the audit. So those numbers are in there as of FY26, and anticipating, as long as there's interest, so hopefully a small increase. The other thing in the harbor is that you'll see under, if you're on, page 26 there, if you're under the Harbor Capital Project Fund, highlighted below that first account is the Jackloff Bay Dock Deferred Revenue Account. And so we are recommending a transfer of $140,000 out of the Jackloff Bay Dock Deferred Revenue Account into the Harbor Fund, in order to fund the Jackloff Bay Dock revenue, or Jackloff Bay Dock replacement project. So that's something that the council has committed through resolution and through the grant. And so recommending that we show that in our FY27 budget. You'll see if we go back to that small boat harbor revenue page on page 17. At the bottom, we have the port fee unencumbered going in, and then we also have that Jackloff Bay Dock deferred revenue. And up above it, about halfway down the page under capital projects, you see it there. I am anticipating that maybe not all of it will be spent on the dock in FY27, but I'm hoping to be able to leverage these funds and use them in the meantime also for some of the uplands projects work. If there's any additional unanticipated expenses, which hopefully with the 3 different pots of money and this committed funds, hopefully that won't be the case. But in the meantime, because we said we've committed it, making sure that we're showing that, I think that we will know more once we put out the RFP, which should be later on this week. Once we receive those proposals back, whether this 140 is actually needed, or if the funds received from the Denali Commission and the second tranche from the PIDP will cover that 25. I mean, it's beyond the 25% match that was needed for the project through the initial PIDP. So it could be that we actually don't end up needing these, but we won't know until then. For now, showing that they're committed, and then you also knowing that they're there so that we can leverage them to do some of the work on the uplands. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, Heidi, I have a question.
Yes.
For everybody, really. A suggestion to take the harbor, small boat harbor, out of the general fund and have their own fund and use the revenue for the long needed maintenance and repairs. Does anybody have agree or?
I'm not sure I'm following. Are you talking, so the harbor itself, the special revenue fund is in its own, it's not in the general fund, but you're talking about the major maintenance and repair fund?
Yes. It just seems like the harbor is the last one to get funds for the maintenance and, it needs a lot of maintenance. And I was suggesting pulling that out of the general fund, even the revenue from the general fund, and having the harbor its own fund.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
Kind of like the fire department.
it is its own fund.
Okay,
That's what we're looking at right now. It is.
okay.
All of these funds we're talking about tonight, water, sewer, harbor, they're all their own. So they have revenues coming in and expenditures coming out. And
But
they,
everything goes into the general fund, correct?
not with the special revenue funds, no.
Okay,
Nope, they're separate. Where they do cross paths is that major maintenance and repair fund.
okay,
There's harbor funds in it, those are payable back to the general fund. So they would, so if we transfer money into them, which we'll talk about at the end here, those technically they decrease the revenue funds and they increase the general fund. But no, these are all standalone funds.
okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions on harbor or discussion?
I had a question. I'd like to, I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm new to this, but to be proactive, I mean, our small boat harbor is such a gateway into this community for so much revenue. I mean, is there any way that we can find out what the needs are to make it more desirable, to maybe court some of these other ferries to bring them in? Is there something that would bring more traffic in? Or, I mean, we lost the Seldovia Bay Ferry, which is significant. Who else is out there? And what would it take? I mean,
Yeah.
right? Because we have a great harbor
Mhm.
and, Homer's Harbor is stuffed already with traffic. And, I just feel that, we have a lot to offer. Maybe we're missing something.
Well, we have two.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Well, we have two tour boats that come in here most in the summer, like every day, except maybe Wednesday.
Yeah, we have, I mean, aside from that, the Rainbow and the
Mhm.
Discovery, the big thing, I think it's a bigger conversation too, is yeah, we do have space in the harbor. It's all comes down to what they can offer their clients basically. You have to entice them to get them out of Homer and then come across the bay to Seldovia. And then if you're going to bring them over there, you obviously have to offer them with your businesses and whatever Seldovia has to offer has to be worth their while. I think that's what it comes down to, is just
Yeah.
coming up with more services, more things to do, more stuff for folks to do to get out and recreate. And I think that's why these conversations about businesses and stuff are so important. The more you have, the more you can grow your economy, the more the more people will come over to see what you have going on. So
And I should throw out there, Mr. Mayor, that one of council's legislative priorities this year was a planning project for the harbor. And so we did submit a legislative request to the state of Alaska, as well as to Senator Murkowski's office. And along with that, I did reach out to the Army Corps of Engineers to just talk about what that process looked like. If for them to get involved like they were previously, see if they wanted, just what that looked like, to open that conversation and start looking at some of the bigger projects, we've been doing, and we will continue to replace finger hinge pins every year and boards and doing some of the smaller stuff. But if you look at that latest, I want to say it was from 2011, but my days might be mixed up. Technical memorandum from the Army Corps of Engineers regarding the harbor. There was several phases included, and only the first phase was completed. So there's still work to be done in that harbor, and as it ages, we just keep limping along. But I know it's a priority in your guys's capital improvement plan, as well as just beginning that conversation of finding funding for the planning part of it. But it seems like we're there now, and we need to start putting some focus on that, as Councilmember Taylor has pointed out, and looking at moving forward with those additional phases to that project. And so with that, those funds that are in the Harbor Improvement Project Fund and in the Major Maintenance and Repair Fund could potentially be used and leveraged to start those processes as well.
I don't know about the feasibility of this, but one thing that I noticed when I come in to a harbor, we don't have, again, this might be way out there, but like there's no showers here, and if you come in on a boat, you've been traveling for a while, or you want to hang out for a while, showers are kind of essential. And I'm just wondering if that's something that could be added to our bathrooms, like a pay shower stall or something, or, I don't think the city needs to get into a big project with a laundromat shower thing, but I just think that it's an awful nice amenity, and people might hang out more and come over more if they knew that they could spend a little more time here and not get smelly.
I thought Mary had that across the street. Laundry and showers.
I don't know what that availability's been. Yeah, I don't know what that availability's been. The pool used to also offer that, and so there's potential if that's open this year. But that has also been a council priority in the capital improvement plan, is to look into having some kind of a public washateria, because there does seem to be a need, and laundry included too. If that's not a business model that's being offered. I don't know how many times we've had people call and looking to do laundry or take showers, with very little accessibility in the community.
Yeah, one thing too, I know with all the amount of IHS funding available out there, that I think I had mentioned that before, that might be a good project to approach the tribe about too. They would probably be way more successful in obtaining funding for a community washateria, that's got essentially those are paid laundromats, paid showers. They get them in just about every other village, and I would think that would be a much faster route to go for sure if the tribe were interested in doing something like that.
I could make a suggestion. I used to use the Lakefront Hotel before they made up their rooms, and they'd give me a $30 room fee for people that I bring in out of the bush that wanted it before they'd make the room up. So if you had any rooms become vacant, somebody could offer that. I don't know if that's what you want to do, but that's what the Lakeshore did, because they had people that I'd bring in from hunting and fishing, and I just sent them over there and they'd take a shower in the room before it was serviced.
Interesting.
I have another question though. On the Jackalope Bay dock, that 1,000 for upland and 2,000, that's an annual fee.
Yes, 1,012 that or 1,000 and 1,200 is an annual fee for the lease and the entry authorization.
DOT or to the state of Alaska.
The Department of Natural Resources, DNR.
DNR.
Yeah. And then we have some other fees that are
Is
going to be
that-
associated with.
Has that been implemented or activated at this time, or where we stand with that?
Yeah, it was, so it was with the signing of the entry authorization is the commitment to that $1,000 a year for the uplands, but it also there was also a $1,200 application fee, and then there's going to be another $1,200 fee for their survey instructions in order to get their survey instructions to get the survey for the land. There's a lot of little fees that pile on.
Sure.
Insurance, we have included the jackaloff as part of our general liability insurance. Not an increase to our overall schedule, but certainly an increased risk, an increased liability.
And for winter time off, so we obligated to snow removal out there, so.
Snow removal on the easement is still the responsibility of DOT. For a parking lot, that's something we could look into if we think we need to do that. I don't think it's being done right now.
Another cost to the city.
It could be. Yeah, plus cleanup. We're looking at cleanup right now.
How are we gonna collect revenue off of the users? That's the next question.
Yeah. And so that's something when we talk about the fee schedule, do you guys want to talk about that for this summer? Or do we want to focus on cleanup and survey and appraisal and then looking at with a new dock, starting a new system? Just something to think about because it's, it's technically under your guys's and jurisdiction now with the entry authorization. So looking at what it is we want to do with it. And it looks like Councilmember Payton has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Harmony.
I'm not, thank you, Miss Mayor. I'm not super invested one way or another. I kind of feel a little bit reticent to charge people fees for the facility in the state that it's in. I know that it makes sense to make monies when and where we can in order to be able to maintain the infrastructure that we have, and looking forward to the infrastructure that we could have. But I think that overall I'd feel more comfortable charging people fees once there's like a tangible benefit to the user, with a new dock, with the clean parking lot, things like that. I don't know that, I'm not really ready to die on this hill, but that's just my thought when we talk about charging people for jackaloff. I feel like doing that when we have a more a better product makes more sense, I think.
At state airports, they have transit parking areas and they have a collection box. There's more of a honorary system. But Wasilla Airport's that way, Kenai Airport's that way. That may be a way, either out of donations or, transit parking comes at a price, and honorary system, you put the envelope in the box. We should collect something if we're gonna put out the money to insure it, and it's all the things that it's gonna cost, but just the upfront cost of getting it going alone, it's hard to recuperate that money.
Yeah, I think at some point we had talked about, we know we're gonna have to, plan on, mortgage fees, transient, daily, overnight, whatever the case may be. I agree. I think that's a whole nother conversation that we need to have outside of this budget in terms of what I'm seeing here for budget, Heidi, for stall rental effectively, you've got 162 grand for budgeted, you got 146 grand budgeted. That takes in, I take it, very little or nothing for the jackaloff piece. Is that correct? Because we wouldn't even really see much until the latter half of FY what is that, FY 2028 or I guess that latter half of FY 27.
Yeah, 27. It's something we could look at in the fee schedule, if you guys want to look at, having a rate and, just having it, starting off with a suggested, rate for parking. It could help with, the beginning of implementing, parking, management out there. I do worry though that if we do that, that could be an issue with consistency and enforcement. You know, we're asking people to do the honor system, but we're not enforcing anything. And sometimes that can be a little bit sticky. But I see where Council Member Barber's coming from with, there is a lot of overhead costs. And that might be a way to start recovering some of those costs, as well as we're already going to be doing that labor to start tracking who's parking out there, in order to impound, if we need to, or clean up what we need to, if there's any derelict vehicles out there, which we know there are. So, I definitely can see both sides of it. And I can make sure that when we talk about the fee schedule, that we bring this up again. And we can look at a couple different models and see if that's something you guys want to explore or not. I do think the intent, as Councilmember Peyton said, at least with the dock, is it was put into code that mortgage could be charged, for that facility, but so far historically, the intent has been to not do so until the dock is replaced. But parking could be treated separately, or it could be looked at as a whole, you know, of the area, as Councilmember Peyton has pointed out, both very viable options. If you guys want to explore that further, I can bring back some scenarios.
I think we should definitely explore the parking piece of that, to at least start having that conversation,
Okay.
especially if we're gonna start cleanup this summer. So, yeah, and that's gonna involve immediately already getting rid of some cars and a bunch of garbage, and then figuring out how to police. I mean, parking's at a premium out there, figuring out how to police that. So,
When I go to the airport in Homer, there's designated areas that have numbers. And then you just, you choose a number, and then they can maybe pay it at the harbor master here or something. Hey, this is my license plate. There could be a drop box there. But that way someone would just have to swing through and look and say, oh, well, someone's paid for 19, wait, someone's parked in 20, there's no registration, there's no fee, paid for this one, and they get a ticket. I don't know. But I don't think it has to be hard. But I think initially it has to be organized and laid out so that, you know where that parking space is and you know what vehicle is supposed to be there. Right?
This thing, if you keep the costs somewhat modest, it's, the word will get out, and I think anybody that uses a dock wouldn't mind paying something, but you could put cameras up to monitor the activity out there, because the bottom line is we're insuring that piece of property. And if anything ever goes wrong out there, they're gonna come out, try to find fault in something we didn't do. So it'd be good if we collected something, but I think it should be a modest fee.
yeah, Heidi, let's make sure we have that, something for when we get to we got to keep moving here. We're gonna suck up all of our time, but yeah, we definitely want to have that conversation when we get to the fee schedule, just to at least talk about it.
Will do, Mr. Mayor, and Councilmember Peyton did have her hand up.
Yep, go ahead, Harmony.
Sure. I just, one thing that somebody asked me and I wasn't sure how to respond to was about potentially charging people for launching from the beach. I guess I'm just wondering, or is that part of our leased area? Is that part of our footprint that we're charging people for, or no?
Through the mayor, excellent question. It is technically part of our leased area, and that is not something that has been discussed to date. I know the harbor master has dreamed of putting a launch ramp in there someday. But we have not had that discussion at all, if there would be a fee associated with that.
The
Yeah,
beach
that's-
area is our lease land.
Correct.
And if they're gonna beach, and when Mako was here, you know, he was showing, the fact that he uses that, it plays an important part in his operation. I don't think he'd have a problem with any kind of a user fee for that. I mean, when you look at the rates we charge here for day transit parking here, I mean, could be considerably less than what we charge here, but I think, you know, I mean, that's kind of taking advantage of, if you're gonna come to our beach that we're paying lease money on, and then you don't want to give us anything for it. I don't think that's right. And I don't think Mako would have a problem with paying something.
Is that something through the mayor, is that something you would want to look at in FY26, or would you want to wait until the dock?
Until the dock is complete, so you have
Yeah.
a first-class facility over there so that they can see
Mhm.
it. But I would put cameras out there to monitor, so you can see, that's what they do at the airport. And, you know, it can be an honorary system, but, you know, it's a kind of a vital docking system for the city of Seldovia, you know, so. But you come to the price.
Yep. Jackie?
I'm assuming it would be the same as the boat launch in town. Do we still charge for that, Heidi?
Through the mayor, yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely worth having a conversation about when the time comes, for sure.
Okay, thank you. If there is anything else on the harbor, and looking at time, because I know we want to end promptly for our guest speaker in the next meeting, but we can move forward to boat haul out.
Yep.
So that's page 19. And a little bit of increase in wages here, because we're anticipating that we'll have more staff time, employee time pushed towards boat haul out this year to do some of that cleanup. We have those pads that need to be replaced on the launch ramps itself, and there's an electric project that the council has in for FY26, and wanting to make sure that we spend some more time cleaning that area up overall, for what I feel like I've heard from council. Let me know if that's wrong. So not a huge change, but a little bit more time put towards that facility. You'll see insurance is down quite a bit because of FY26, and that's great. And no capital projects planned for FY27 at this point. But we will have another conversation to see if there are things that you guys would like. We haven't had anything recommended from staff to point, other than to more of a basic cleanup, or we've been doing basic, more of a overall cleanup of the area. Revenues, again, that 1.5% increase. But that's less any boat write-offs for impound. We do have a list of 4 vessels that we're looking at sending out a delinquent notice for at the end of this month. And then potentially, if they remain in the rears, putting out impound notices and moving forward with that project if needed. So that's always on the list. And then it comes with some write-offs for the accounts. So looking at what our FY26 actuals are to date, and then trending out for FY27, a little bit of a modest decrease, not a lot. And we still do remain at a net profit, for a net balance, I should say, not profit. We're not looking for profits. We're looking for a net balance for the boat haul out. Anything else the council would like to see with that boat haul out project? Okay, then senior meals, starting on page 22. We did decrease supplies, so we have a little bit of a decrease in budget. because we had some supplemental funds in FY26 that came in from the state. That was a one-time funding. We're anticipating we'll have probably about 13,000 left with the way it's trending now. So we're hoping to utilize that to buy a couple new freezers. Again, those stairs, we keep talking about multi-purpose building stairs. We're going to get it one way or another. Getting those done, maybe a couple of the additional circuits for the breaker box for the transfer switch. So we're just trying to finance officer Yeager's looking at what those options are right now, and we'll present a recommendation on how to utilize those funds, and also buying supplies in for next year, some of the shelf stable supplies. Otherwise, 1.5% increase for the staff, and I think that's really the big changes for that one. Do see a net effect for this one, and really you should not see much of a net effect for this account. Net balance year after year, because we do have a match that we put in every year. And we want these revenues and expenditures to really pencil out. And so I was going to talk about this a little bit later on, but I think this is a good segue. If you look at this operating fund balance target, that is the one thing I updated in the notes. I don't anticipate ever recommending that we transfer funds or meet that target reserve for senior meals, because it's not a core service, and it is something that we try to be very mindful of, that we're spending and making at a very balanced budget, very close in revenues and expenditures. And so you'll see at the bottom of each of these funds that I implemented in the recommendation, these operating fund balance target of 1 year expense, and that comes off of that cash flow management plan. And so far, the only two funds that actually meet that 1 year target are water and sewer. And if we go back, not to make you go back, I apologize. But for instance, if you go back to, and it's on every fund has that target, that 1 year target, and that's a 3-year average of our audited funds, except not quite, because I used FY25 estimate, and that's not audited, but it will be, and we'll update those when that audit's complete. But so this is a pretty close approximation. If you look at, for instance, page 12 for sewer, you'll see that the 12-month revenues for a 3-year audited average at the top of the page is 108,501. And that's just something that we track. But what we're really looking at the previous page 11 is the expenditures. 12 months is 95,860. You'll see our estimated ending fund balance of 164,903. So our fund balance target has been met. But even knowing that that's an estimate, what we use is that revenue minus the expenditure, the 3-year target for each, and we have a 12,641 net that is recommended to be transferred to the MMRF sewer. And so if you look on the page 11, 3 lines up in the budget there at the bottom, transfer into MMRF sewer, and then you'll see a negative balance, 12,641 coming out. That does come out of that bottom line there, and that will go into your capital projects. You'll see the same scenario for water, but with a different amount. And when you go back to that page 26, that's what I had skipped over in the capital project budget, is that highlighted water 97,222 and 19,790. those go up because of that recommendation to transfer. As I stated, it was 12 back. I should have done this on its own worksheet. 12,641 for sewer. And 28,862 for water. And I wanted to show this because we talked about that in that cash flow management plan. And I think it's hard to envision what that looks like. But that would be the goal then, is every year looking at during the budget process, just like we just discussed, what our reserve target is, what our ending fund balance is, and then if there is if we've met that, then putting those any additional funds into this major maintenance and repair fund. And as you remember, that fund has the purpose of being able to make any improvements or repairs that are needed, unanticipated repairs. So for water, if our water pumps at the water treatment plant go out, we need new media, there's a huge water leak, whatever it may be, that those funds might be needed for sewer, those sewer lift stations, I don't know, sewer mains hit. There's a massive infiltration issues happening in the slough, for instance. If something like that is happening, then you have those funds available in order to complete those projects. And like we discussed with the harbor, even you being able to leverage those funds for bigger projects as well. Does that help show what that discussion was in the cash flow management plan? How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I think that was a good way to show that where the money goes when you do that. So yeah, that's pretty clean.
Is that something you guys would like to see? And we'll bring back, and maybe that'll be at the tail end of our capital project discussion. We can bring back that cash flow management policy and talk about it again and see if that's still something you guys want to pursue.
I think it's a good idea. It kind of helps everybody understand what, especially the newer members about, what our plan was for, to try to move some of that when there's surplus, to try to move that around.
I agree with Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I'll keep this in here for like this for now. And then when we talk about capital projects more specifically, I'll bring back that cash flow management policy and we'll just go over this again and see if there's any additional feedback or thoughts on it. The last fund that we have to go over is your volunteer fire and EMS special revenue fund. And I didn't really touch base on this one a lot because it's brand new. Well, it's not brand new. This has been an ongoing fund for many, many, many years, but to have it recognized in the budget is brand new. Council just formally recognized it with the mid-year budget adjustment for FY26. And you'll see that we have our FY25 estimates, our FY26 budget as just newly adopted, and then FY27 budget is in here. I wasn't gonna spend a lot of time on it unless you guys want to. There's a fire department meeting this Thursday, a membership meeting, where this discussion is on the docket. My hope is that moving forward in this process, this budget will be discussed first by the department and they can make their recommendations and approvals, and then it comes back to the council for final approval. Unless there's anything you guys if you see or want to discuss, I was going to leave that at that for this fund.
Yeah, no objections from me.
Last thing then I would point out, sorry, I think I said that was the last thing, but it was not quite. Just to keep your thinking around capital projects. going back to that page 26, and I use this page a lot, so you'll hear me bring it up over and over again. But it does run throughout our entire budget, and it really is nice to see from an operational standpoint, from an administration standpoint, to have our operating funds be our operating funds, our capital project budget be our capital project budget, which is what these funds will lead into that discussion, so that we can see what our day-to-day is, and then what those, additional projects are on top of that, and those are separate but together. So with that in mind, we've touched on it a bit back and forth, with water and sewer being transferred in, some of the unassigned funds being transferred out, Jack Lock being transferred out. The other thing, and we don't have to fully divest into this conversation tonight, but just to have you guys thinking about for when we talk about capital projects on its own. The other recommendation in here, after talking with Finance Officer Yeager, is to pay off the road grader lease this year. And so page 26 highlighted, you might have been wondering what that highlighted number is, of 105,375 under the Public Works Fund. We're recommending that 124,000 be transferred from this fund into the general fund. And you'll see that on the following page 28. And you've seen this page before when we talked about the general fund itself. Under the total debt service, there under general fund expenditures, you have 124,076, and then again below, proceeds from financing agreement, 120 proceeds from financing agreement, road grader, 124,076. That would be the transfer from the reserve account, and then that would be the expenditure out from the reserve account, and or not from the reserve, so the expenditure out from the general fund. And the interesting thing about when this happens is it, as we've talked about, when money goes in and money goes out, it impacts those assigned funds in the general fund, right? Because they're all payable to the general fund. So these, even though these the 2% funds and the major maintenance and repair funds are all assigned or committed or reserved for their own specific purposes, when we utilize those funds, it does impact that bottom dollar of the general fund. And what it does on that page 29 is it reduces the committed funds from Public Works down to what we anticipate the new number would be. And it reduces also what those assigned committed funds totals are. It's not hitting the ending fund balance because it's in and out, and you'll see it as the expenditure. But overall, what it does is there's quite a few benefits that go with it. And I did talk about that in the memo a little bit. So I'll pull that up so I have my notes. Looking on that page 6, the recommendation is based on available funds and economic uncertainty, including recent state and borough sales tax discussions. The benefits include relieving some of the assigned funds payable to the general fund and annual general fund expenditures. That's that $51,000 payment a year that is automatically budgeted, as well as paying approximately $13,000 less in interest. And then being able to use those funds and look forward to future public works and deferred maintenance projects. So I know that Councilmember Barber's talked an interest of moving forward with a few different projects, from boardwalks to heavy equipment storage. I know the historic boardwalk itself could really use some love. It's getting to a point where it needs to happen. The other thing that these funds could be used for is to put an engineering firm on retainer and then start these planning projects and getting preliminary designs done, preliminary engineering and designs done. And so that we do have a shovel-ready project. Of course, with further discussion from the council on where they want to go. But in looking at the value of that payoff versus what we can do moving forward in the future, administration thinks it's time to look at making that payment. The other thing that's included in here, and just as a last thought to think through, is on page 5. You'll see that recommended, we talked about it with the with the cash flow management plan. Again, looking at having, oops, wrong page, sorry, page 6. Page 5 did show those ins and outs. So you can see that what we're talking about, moving from our reserve funds in and out of our general fund and special revenue funds, everything we just discussed. And then page 6 has that recommendation. It does not include the backhoe since we don't have it yet, of looking at making a investment into the vehicle replacement fund from the Public Works 2% fund of $20,210.61. And then and that is included in this 105 figure that you'll see is anticipated at the end of FY27 for Public Works. With that 20,000 and the road grader of 124,000 minus the 179,000 we have in there now, you have about 35,000 in there, anticipating a 70,000 revenue earmark for Public Works from 2% since the road grader payments pulled out. We've been writing between 80 and 90,000. So again, anticipating low, just because of where we are economically, and then being able to move forward and looking at in the next year budget discussions and capital project. And I mean, it could be this year as well. Having those funds be available for other Public Works projects. I know we're getting close on time, so any initial thoughts or follow-ups on that, Mr. Mayor, if you want to have that, or we can save it for the capital project budget itself. Open to questions and however the council wants to move forward from here.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How much did we pay for the motor blade
For the grader?
grader?
I don't have that figure off the top of my head. I would have to pull it up. I can do that.
Well, okay. Then how much is the payoff gonna be when the money you're gonna pay it off with?
We're anticipating 124,000.
124.
There's about 137,000 left on the
Okay.
contract.
And you have 300 for replacement on a 40-year life expectancy, which I think you're stretching it to get 40 years out of it. Part of the reason is a lot of this new equipment, they come obsolete and it's hard to get parts for them. And I mean, it's something you need to think about. I don't know if you're going to get 40 years out of it. But anyway, instead of paying the motor blade off, the grader off, you could build a maintenance facility, put that money to that. Because having our equipment, like the other morning, I drive out, sitting out there running, it doesn't have a building. And that's the heart of our maintenance program, is our equipment here that takes care of the water and sewer projects and snow plowing and everything else. And we need to protect it. That would be my recommendation. Instead of playing the motor grader off, build a building to harbor all your maintenance equipment in.
We're gonna need a lot more money than that, Jack.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a price for a building, okay? But you got to start somewhere. The upfront cost is going to cost you a little bit, but on the long run, it's going to pay you back.
Well, I
mean,
understand that. But we've got a building that we started that was $1 million building, and we still haven't finished that.
It's not a
first.
$1 million building. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
It's
You can
going to be
probably have
about
a maintenance
2
shed out
million
there
to
for
$3
less than
million.
500,000.
It's going to be 2 to 3 million when we're all done.
You know,
I just built the building. I know what it costs.
Jack, how much did you do by yourself?
375.
Well, I can tell you what, you know what I do for a living, and we're not getting that building for no less than $2 million if it's a public project. If it's your own project, you can do your own in kind, but we can't do that with a public project. We're going to be paying Davis Bacon. We're going to be doing all kinds of fun stuff when it's all said and done. Jackie, what do you got?
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. We're wasting money on interest on these notes. Paying it off, I think, would be, you save money in the end, and maybe not enough to build the building that Jack is talking about, but it could definitely go towards some other public works projects that need to get done also. And the last thing we need is another building that isn't finished. That's all.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with what that we need a maintenance facility, but I
No.
think we're gonna have to have a full-fledged, I mean, like what Heidi was saying earlier, we come up with the money, we do the preliminary engineering on it. We got to figure out the land, where it's gonna go, make sure that's gonna work. We're not gonna have any issues out there with geotech. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces and parts to that. I mean, I wish it were that simple where we could just, buy it, build it, and be done with it. But I mean, I'm sure it's going to be $100,000 for power, another $100,000 for sewer. I mean, all that stuff. We'll have everything. It's not just going to be a dry shed. I mean, we're going to have that thing probably heated, and there'll be I mean, depending on what we want. Maybe we don't want it heated. I don't know, but yeah, there's definitely a big conversation that we got to have around that. That's going to be a major project for sure.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the interest of time, just to answer Councilmember Barber's question, we paid $296,773, or that was the value of the grader that we bought in 2022. We paid less than that because we had a governmental
Was it a used
contract.
piece of equipment?
It was brand new.
Brand new, and it was how much money?
It was about 247, all said and done.
47.
And then we have 40 years in there because we bought that grader in 2022. And the previous grader is 1984, so that was about 38 years. So we can lessen that if you guys want, down to 35 years. But looking at the lifespan of what we're currently using for some of this equipment, and then making sure that we're making it between 35 and 40 years for a piece of equipment.
How old is the other grader that we have out there?
Yeah, that one's from 1984, so
And
it's now 40 years old.
nothing's gonna last forever.
Yeah. It's a way to start. We can look at different figures if you guys want. We can bring that back as part of the capital project budget as well, but just wanting to start to have that conversation and
You've
plan.
been able to look at other facilities and see what their life expectancy is for this stuff, like the Kenai Borough or the state, or what are they using for a replacement?
For equipment,
Yeah,
they all have quite a bit shorter schedules than we do. We found that ours are extended because we don't get the miles that a lot of these other communities do, especially for instance on like our emergency equipment. Technically, according to and I've only seen a few, but the few communities I've seen their replacement schedules, all of that equipment would be obsolete and we should have replaced by now. But our ambulance has very low miles on it. And it runs well. I mean, everything, as long as we're upkeeping it, we do anticipate a longer lifespan for our equipment.
Does Caterpillar give any input on the replacement? Obviously, they want to sell machinery, so they'd probably come up with a shorter time, but
We can ask.
good to know what they're thinking.
We can certainly ask.
All right, you got anything else, Heidi, before we go to public here? That's about all we're going to get in tonight.
Nope, that's what I have. So with that, I hope that the special revenue fund budget looks pretty, unless there's any significant changes, we're gonna keep it fairly status quo. And then we'll come back and either have the fee schedule budget next or capital project budget next. Let me know if you guys have a preference. And then unless there's other things that you guys want to bring up specifically, that will be a wrap on the FY27 budget.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, we'll go ahead and do we have anybody online or in the audience that wanted to comment on tonight's work session topics?
I'm not seeing anybody, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. We'll go ahead and bring it back. Can we stay on this link or do we got to sign in on a new link?
We can stay on this link. I'll take the recording off and then just restart the recording.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, if there's nothing else, then appreciate everyone's attendance and conversation on those topics. That was pretty clean. A few things that will, on the next, we've still got a few work sessions to go here, obviously, but yeah, things are moving along here. So we'll go ahead. Let's take, it's 5:59 now. Let's come back and be ready to go at 6:05 here so we can get started on time, because I know we've got the borough mayor here and he's got a full schedule tonight. So unless there's anything else, we'll go ahead and adjourn the work session and we'll be back in 5 minutes for the regular meeting.